nothing more elemental to a democracy than its voter roll. In India and in the United States, if you are not registered, if you are not on the voter roll, you cannot cast a ballot. Voter rolls are the entry point to our democracy, and they are also the foundation for a well-run election. Now, Pew has been studying elections for over 2 decades. We've been looking at election administration and voter registration recently, and we found serious problems in the United States with cost, with accuracy, with the efficiency of the system. When we dug into our voter rolls, we found that 12.7 million records on those rolls were out of date. That 1.8 million dead people are on our rolls. That 2.7 million people are registered in multiple states at the exact same time. When you roll up all the problems that we found, we see that 24 million records are inaccurate. That is 1 out of 8 records on our voter rolls. Now, these errors lead to serious concerns about the integrity of our election. Just in the 3 months before the last presidential election in 2012, you saw headlines like this, and you see these headlines every election cycle in myriad newspapers, questioning who's on the list, who's not on the list. How can jurisdictions have more people on their voter rolls than the census indicates that there are eligible citizens? And questions about whether partisan forces are really manipulating the process for their own gain. But it is more than a headline. This is a very serious problem for our election system. In that same 2012 election, 1.2 million people were unable to cast a ballot because of problems with their registration. Across the United States, 51 million citizens are excluded because they're not registered. They cannot vote. That is 1 in 4 of our eligible citizens are excluded from our democracy. America, as India, is a modern society. It is highly mobile. We have 1 in 8 Americans moving in any given year. We have approximately double that, 1 in 5, for young Americans, those who are first entering our election system or that we hope will enter our election system if they can navigate these barriers. 30% of our electorate moves between every presidential election, and there are complicating factors. So during the most recent recession that we experienced, if you lived in Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is, tourist-dependent economy, devastated by the recession, 20% of their population left the county in less than 6 months. That threw the voter rolls into disarray, but there was no way to address that. It's not just mobility. The voter rolls have to keep up with you when you change your name, if you get married, if you get divorced. If you die, you need to be removed from the rolls. If you attain the age of 18, you need to be added to the rolls. All those life changes need to be reflected, but in the United States, as in India, the responsibility lies on the individual. In most established democracies, it is the government that populates and updates the voter rolls and keeps them accurate. But in our nations, it's up to the individual to make sure that they are on that roll. And as a result, there is a mad scramble before our presidential elections every 4 years, because that's when excitement about the electoral process peaks. But since we outsource our work in the United States to register people, it is political parties and campaigns, nonprofit get-out-the-vote drives who are doing this. And with the best of intentions, often, it is done inefficiently. They don't have access to the rolls, so they are registering people who are already registered. They're submitting forms that are incomplete, sometimes illegible, sometimes past the deadline for getting the form. Even if it's done well, the fact that we are waiting until right before that presidential election means that if you move across the street to where you would need a new precinct or to a new state, in 2013, it is not until the actual month before the next presidential election in 2016 when the voter rolls will catch up with you. And that's the absolute worst time for those who are running elections. That is when they need to find the polling place and set them up, when they need to recruit poll workers and train them, when they need to design the ballots and print them. And yet they're inundated with this influx of paper forms for registration. And so what do? What's the solution? Well, this is the type of problem that the Pew Charitable Trust lives for. Whether it's in our criminal justice work or our work on healthcare or education, we look for how we can make government more efficient and more effective. And in this arena, we found it particularly valuable to harness technology to make the process easier for voters, but more efficient for government. And I want to highlight two of those interventions. One, online registration, and the second, data matching. To process a paper form for an election office, 83 cents per form. For an online registration, 3 cents. In the US, it's passed the market test. We found that there is significant interest. 4 out of 5 registrations in jurisdictions that offer it are now using online registration. It's growing at a very rapid pace. And that's primarily because of the attributes that we just indicated. These are actually very inexpensive systems to set up. They are easily designed to address concerns about accuracy and privacy. And the money that you saved allows you to redirect resources to those aspects of the electorate that don't have access to the internet. Now let me turn very quickly to data matching. As I said, election officials in the US really had no tools for them to keep up with that mobile population or with any other of the changes that were occurring with those who are on the registration rolls or should be on the registration rolls. But you know that the private sector keeps up with its customers. And so what we did was we worked with leading election offices and IBM to develop what we call the Electronic Registration Information Center, or ERIC. And it is a very sophisticated tool at the disposal of government to match multiple data sets. So you can bring in information from change of address records, from vital statistics, our death records, from those who get a driver's license or register a car, for those who get a level of public assistance from our government in whatever form. And you can bring those various data sets and match them with the voter rolls. And it allows you, therefore, to get those voter rolls updated. If interventions like this make so much sense, then you have to ask yourself, we certainly did, why weren't they happening? So what are the barriers? Those who run our elections, county registrars, the secretaries of states, are seriously under-resourced. And here again, we worked with election officials along with research teams to design this so that there was full buy-in. And we identified 17 key indicators, looking at what is the best available data that we could consistently collect after every federal election, every 2 years, across the United States. Let me leave you with one thing, one last reflection. There is simply no doubt that the pursuit of a vibrant democracy is an exceptionally worthy goal. It is one that we all share. But it is dependent on the nuts and bolts of the way we run elections. And that is true whether you are the world's oldest continuing democracy or whether you are the world's largest democracy. And what we know is that we can modernize our election system if we put our minds to it.